All right, it's Friday. Happy Friday. Hope everyone's having a good day. We are less than 24 hours away from South Carolina, Alabama, and there's some good news for the Gamecocks. The injury report has been updated. We got a quick show going over that, final prediction, and this is the healthiest South Carolina's been all year. Could that lead to an upset on Saturday? We talk about it next. Locked On Gamecocks starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I'm your host, Chris Marlowe. Hope everyone's having a fantastic Friday. Let's see if this is focused in. We're good. We got the new camera out here. We got the new background. It is a great Friday. Not the new background. We're just in the living room today. But anyway, I digress already. Quick episode for today, just going over some of the news and notes and the latest going into the game. It is Friday. The updated injury report is out, and it's very good news for South Carolina. We'll talk about that next. Before we get started, I want to say thanks to everyone making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. Shout out to our everydayers. We're a free and available podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. I just can't say thank you enough, guys. We hit over 100,000 views for the third straight month for the first time in the channel's history. That's been awesome. Audio numbers are up. Everything's up across the board. We've got like 200 new 50 subscribers this week alone. So I can't say thank you enough to those that have spread the word, reached out, and everything in between. So thank you for that. Remember, the only way to keep this thing growing and help the channel grow, comment in the comment section. And also, if you haven't sub, it'd be great. That's the only shameless plug for the day. Today's episode brought to you by just us. We're just going to get right into it. So this injury report comes out. It's technically an availability report, and that's important because there are a couple of teams that take advantage of this each and every week. A&M actually just got fined $50,000 because they were less than honest, is what I'll say. I won't say lied, but less than honest about their injury report last week going into their game against Arkansas. The injury report that came out last night, it's the healthiest South Carolina has been all year. It is the healthiest they have been all year. Every single player that was on it earlier in the week is now off of it. That is great news. I'm going to go through the numbers real quick and who is where. But that is, I think I wrote in my article over at losingsports.net, it's the healthiest they've been since week one. It's the healthiest they've been all year. They were still kind of banged up even going into that game. But there's one player listed. It's Casey Henry, your right tackle. And he is going to be out for another game, which sucks. But the good news on that is you got every other offensive lineman back. You also got Monco Goodwine short up off that. You get Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy off the list as well. So you are short up. Brian Rowe is playing this week. He's not out after the off-field stuff from last week. But one player, the fewest of any team in the SEC, by the way, one player is listed on that injury report. The opposite side of that, for Alabama, they had 3 new players that made the report from Wednesday to Thursday in 24 hours. I don't know what happened in practice, but Danny Lewis Jr., the tight end who plays for them, he was kind of banged up throughout the season, but he was back for Tennessee. He went from not being listed at all to out completely. Then you talk about Gino Vandermark, who's our starting guard. He's rotated a little bit at left guard. He's played a little bit at right, but it's mainly left guard now that Jaden Roberts is back. But he went from being not included at all to questionable. And then their freshman phenom receiver, Lacier Brooks, he went from not being listed at all to doubtful. So, and he's a big component too. Number 17, he had several catches last week in Tennessee. He's had several catches this year, some big ones as well. All 3 of those players going in onto the report, and it looks like all 3 will most likely be out for this game. Bama has struggled, especially at shuffling some of the position or some players across the offensive line positions. Caden Proctor's been great. Parker Brailsford's great at center. But everywhere else, there have been some ups and downs throughout the season. What this tells me about South Carolina, at the very least, you've got the best shot you've had going into a game where you feel you're at your healthiest. Like Dylan Stewart's name didn't pop up on that list at all this week, especially after having to leave the game last week. That's a huge deal. I love the fact the interior defensive line and the interior offensive line, no one's listed. Shivers is back. Nolan Hayes not listed. So maybe you figure out a way to get him back in the mix where Boaz Stanley is not as much of a liability at center. I don't know. I'm not sure what the starting lineup is going to look like tomorrow, but I will tell you this. at the very least, for the first time in a month and probably more, and again, like I said at the top, all season, you are not as banged up as you've been in any other game. And that's a big deal because like this offensive line has still been horrible, but it's only exacerbated when you have 3 starters out and then you have, backups coming in. And as Shane Beamer mentioned the other day, even when the backups were out, then you end up having, even when the backups were out there filling in, you had injuries there as well. The 2 places you came into this season where you were at your thinnest was the interior offensive line and the interior defensive line. And that's where you've been hurt the most all season. So, will that translate into a win? I don't know. I don't, if I'm being honest, I don't think so. We'll break down a little bit of the game, even though I've already given out my prediction. We'll go through it again. I'm not really being moved off of how I think this game will play out. I think the way this game has to play out for Carolina, if they want to win, is you got to follow the blueprint. As I've said all week, listen, Kalen DeBoer, 14 losses as a head coach. 12 of those games have come on the road. 11 of those games have come against unranked teams. 7 of them have come against teams when you were a double-digit favorite or more. All of those boxes are checked in this matchup. South Carolina at home, you're an 11.5-point underdog, you're unranked. So nothing has changed from a talent standpoint. The way they have executed or lack thereof, and the way they have their production has been very just dismal and abysmal is probably the best way to put it throughout the entire season. But there are opportunities this week. I don't love the matchup because where South Carolina, I think, has the best chance to be a threat offensively is probably throwing the football. And Alabama's pass defense is really good, but they are vulnerable and they're able to get some yards and some chunk plays, especially in the run game against this Alabama rushing defense. You've seen it all year, right? Like Georgia averaged 7 yards a carry, Vanderbilt averaged over 6 yards a carry. Last week, Tennessee, they had a huge long run. I think they went for 40 yards and a touchdown to in the very first drive of the second half, or their first drive of the second half. So there are spots that, like, if Fajon breaks one, I was talking to one of my buddies about this the other day, like the way that they fit their run fits, sometimes they have had a lot of lapse in communication to where you'll have 2 guys in the same gap, and a lot of times that leaves a hole wide open, and that you and I could even run through. Probably you, not me. Okay. But you get the point and you get the idea. If you're able to figure out something like you had at LSU, where you have Matthew Fuller break one, or Russell Faison break one, or even Attaway, you got to find some success in some chunk plays. And there will be lapses on this defense. It's happened throughout the year, whether it be someone on the back end on wheel routes. That's the way that Missouri scored on their opening drive with Norfleet. Whether it's something like that, or whether it's something like it's a missed block and Cedric Alexander for Vanderbilt goes off and scores on a 70-yard run, you have the athletes to be able to do those things. So if you can hit on a couple of those and then find out that you're in this game going into halftime, because if you're in this game at halftime, that crowd's going to believe you're going to be at home in front of a homecoming crowd in Willie B. The weather's going to be beautiful. Everyone that I'm so dumb for not going, but I have to be here in Baton Rouge to help out with some of the other stuff at LSU A&M. Everyone that I've talked to from both sides is just Columbia looks beautiful right now. So the only person that's more upset with me for not going than me is my mom. She is not. She assumed that I was coming in town for the game. But anyway, I digress again. Shocking, I know. I think that from an offensive line standpoint, you're going to get your best effort with a unit that has been troubled. I think that you might see more 12 personnel, even more than you have before, especially with Sean Elliott taking over. I think you might see some different run schemes and some blocking schemes in the offensive line. I think that you're going to see the best effort you've seen all season, because you kind of are just at this point where you have to. And let's also keep in mind that there's probably part of Mike Shula has a little bit of a revenge factor, as he's planning this week. Maybe you get his best effort. I think we need it. I think he has to have at some point an honest conversation about what's working, what's not working. And there's so many things that you could take that South Carolina runs versions of and variations of from other teams that have had success, whether it be the motion that Vandy has had for most of that game. Florida State did the same thing, whether it be a mobile quarterback like Vandy and Florida State. There are little things from each team that have played Alabama so far, and some that have played them very well and close, where you can kind of borrow and copy and paste and that into what your game plan might be. I just expect with 7 weeks, and especially like 7 weeks of what we've seen, and not a finished product yet, but 7 weeks of this product, and the week that Shane Beamer has had, I fully expect Shane Beamer to come out, be furious, and want to shut everyone up. I firmly believe that. I think that's what he has in mind to do for this game. I think you're going to see LaNorris run the ball more north and south, mainly, hopefully north or whatever. Maybe it was south. I don't know. Forward, not backward is what I'm trying to say. But run the football downhill in more design runs. I would venture to say that they get inside the 10-yard line, you will see some design quarterback runs for the first time in several weeks. I think you're going to see a little bit more creativity in the passing game. I think you're able to see some more time in the passing game. Remember, this is an Alabama team that is really good defensively, and they had a great week last year rushing the passer. Yanzi Pierres is a great young former 5-star defensive end. He's fantastic. But that being said, it's also a team that is, they're not great at the right tackle position. I'm sorry. South Carolina is not great at the right tackle position because of the injuries you have. Neither is Alabama, but it's also a defense. The way they do the swarm defense under Kane Womack, their MO is not sacking the quarterback. It's not like the Alabama games of the past where it's like Will Anderson and Dallas Turner, where they're getting after those guys. If you can figure out a way to keep him upright and give some help, I think Nolan Hay going back to center and getting Boaz Stanley out of there is a huge help. I think that you're also going to see some chip blocks and some things from tight ends that are going to be able to help. And then the other side of that, I do think you're going to have more success getting after Ty Simpson with some exotic blitzes and some pressure, because when he's under pressure, he's a much different quarterback. You look at the Florida State game, and I know it's a long time ago, and he's playing much better than that. But the numbers are still there, and he's been pressured against Vandy, pressured against Mizzou, and pressured against against Tennessee. And there's some times where he has his performance suffers a little bit from it. That Florida State game, he was 3 of 14 when put under pressure. Again, there are things that other teams have done to this Alabama team that you can kind of copy and paste and pick from that maybe you want to try to implement into your game plan on offense and defense. I think the defensive ends for South Carolina are going to give the right side of that offensive line for Alabama fits. I think that'll be one thing. So if you can get in the backfield, force a couple punts, maybe you get a big return, flip the field, figure out ways to stay in this game. Like that is the only path you have to winning. I think you also have to figure out a way to have this thing be somewhat similar to the LSU game last year or some of these other games where you jump on someone early and you got to go up by 10 points. Like I don't think that's enough to put this Bama offense away. I do think that with everything they've had to play for 4 straight weeks, where you have 4 straight top 25 teams and you have the bye week coming up next and then LSU, this is a perfect trap game for Alabama, because it's like, how do you get back up for a 5th straight week, especially when that bye week is looking so tasty in the very near future. Now, I have said all week 30-10 is what I got. The 30-10 is where 30-10 is where I've kind of settled on with my picks. I thought that was bad. I went to go look at our friends over at 247 Sports. They do a tremendous job, by the way. Make sure you guys are following all their stuff. I'm sure you do. JC, all those guys, they do a great job. They do a great job. So make sure you're keeping up with those guys as well. But I went to go check there. Hale McGranahan, fantastic name, by the way. And some of the other people with the picks. He was the one that was furthest away from it. He had Bama winning 27-21. Everyone else I saw was close to me. Alex Jones, Danger 25, and then JC. They all had the same exact number. That was 28-10. That's kind of where I settled all the week. Just from this conversation, I'm going to go 30-17 final answer in this game, because first off, the Vegas line opens at 13.5. They're usually rarely wrong. I think the total is right around that as well. I don't see South Carolina being able to put up that many points consistently for 4 quarters. We just haven't seen it. And you're going up against a really good unit. Now, if you can force them into a sleepy start and get some things going your way and keep that crowd into it, I think this game could get a lot more interesting. But in the end, I do think that Alabama was a little bit too tough, and they got too much on the line for them to lose focus for 60 full minutes. And if this was an offense like last year's where they kept scoring, and you had to get this thing up into the 20s or 30s, like we saw them be able to do at times last year, I would believe in it a little bit more. But if I'm just being honest, I don't know if South Carolina is built to do that or make the changes offensively to do that this week. Get out to a good start. You know what can happen if you do. Keep that crowd into it. We'll see what happens. And I'll be here on Saturday, right after the game, probably on my phone, trying to post stuff from the LSU A&M game as well. But we will have a great post-game show. We'll talk about all of it. It'll be our therapy session, but for free, and we'll all yell at the screen together. I appreciate you guys so much. Again, I'm sure you guys are getting tired of hearing me being sentimental, but man, it just means so much to me. This is awesome. This is so awesome. And to see the growth of the channel this week, I think before the season, I said I was going to pay $100 to the NIL, the Garnet Trust. If we got to 7,000 YouTube subscribers, that was like, I think we had 6,800 with like a week before the season. We're up there at like 7,600. So we've gained 800 or more throughout the year, and the views have been great. And I just really appreciate you guys for everything that you do supporting the channel, and we'll keep this thing going. So until next time, go Cox.